The open source part is basically the usage metering solution. So we have a very simple API where you ingest usage information. A lot of our customers are AI-focused companies. Even within that category, we have a wide range. We have AI startups who just started out and need an easy solution.
In this episode, I talk with Márk Sági-Kazár, CNCF ambassador and head of open source software at OpenMeter. We'll discuss what OpenMeter is and how it provides solutions for AI startups to measure their usage and turn it into billing. My name is Csaba Huszka. I will be your host. Welcome to the Follow the Pattern podcast. About 20 or 30 years ago, I think the common case was that if you wanted to buy a software or operation system or any kind of software piece, you had to buy a license for a lifetime. What do you think? Why is it beneficial to customers just only paying for usage?
Well, I guess to put things in perspective, it really depends on the type of service you are buying. For example, if you bought I don't know, a graphics design software back in the days, you would have to pay for that specific version, and then next time you would have to pay for the new version again. But there is you can't really talk about usage in that case. Like, what's the usage? Number of clicks you do in a graphics design software, or number of images you open. So it's hard to think about those kind of subscriptions or licenses in terms of usage. But a lot of services these days can actually measure usage very effectively. Like, usage is kind of the unit of cost for a lot of services as well. For example, if you think about AI these days, translating like language model usage, translating that into cost is actually not that difficult. So for a lot of services, not just for customers, but for a lot of services, measuring usage and attributing the cost of that usage to customers is how they can scale businesses. For customer on the customer side, like, in order to scale your own with the usage, when you rely on a third party service, if you want to scale your business together with your usage, you need to be able to pay what you use, not some sort of arbitrary monthly fee. You may not even use that service to the entire extent of your subscription. So for customers, when you pay only for the service that you use, it usually means that you either pay less than you would have to for an entire, for example, compared to a seat-based pricing, you may pay less initially, and then you could scale the usage together with your business.
So you work at the OpenMeter, and then the OpenMeter provides a solution, an out of the box solution for calculating usage-based costs. Can you tell us more about how the product works?
Yeah, absolutely. So OpenMeter, the core technology is actually open source, and then we have a cloud-based product built on top. The open source part is basically the usage metering solution. So we have a very simple API where you ingest usage information. We call these events because generally usage information is derived from something happening in your system. For example, an API call, or asking a question from an OpenAI assistant or something like that. So we call these events, and we measure usage based on these events. There are certain types of aggregations that you can do over these events. But basically, you ingest everything to our system, and we aggregate this information nearly real time and store it in a database so you can query it and build your own solutions on top of it. That's like the core solution. And then on top of that, we have a cloud-based offering where we run this whole infrastructure for you. You don't have to run Kafka or ClickHouse or any of the other dependencies. We do that for you. We also do the scaling, so you don't have to know how to scale the different components and the different services to make it scalable to your needs. And then we have a bunch of features on top of the open source version in the cloud. For example, we have integrations with Stripe and a bunch of CRMs in the cloud version. That's the basic product, and we are also working on a bunch of integrations. Obviously, like that's one of the most important things that customers ask for, to be able to easily integrate with their own systems. We have a bunch of stuff coming up in the cloud version, but we are also trying to slowly ramp up the community in the open source version as well. So most of the integrations either will be open source right from the start, or we will move them to the open source version eventually. Some of the integrations will obviously stay proprietary, but we are trying to gradually move more and more stuff from the cloud version to the open source version. It's also much easier for us to try new things in the cloud version because we got immediate feedback from the customers. So it's easier to experiment in the cloud. But once we feel something is ready, we will gradually move more and more stuff to the open source version.
If you talk about just the cloud solutions, what kind of customers does the OpenMeter have?
AI is certainly huge right now. A lot of our customers are AI focused companies, and like even within that category, we have a wide range. We have AI startups who just started out and need an easy solution to build their customers, to measure usage, to meter usage, and turn that into billing. Like that's a very typical use case for an AI startup today. Another typical AI use case is what we call credit enforcement. So basically, in AI companies, you generally the unit of usage is token or something like that, which means especially for language models, which means you ask a question from an assistant or type some text and you get a response, and those, like the question and the answer, are turned into tokens, and then you are billed based on the number of tokens that you use. And a lot of services have like a limit in their user plans, and they want to make sure that users don't abuse the service or don't use more tokens than they are supposed to. So this is where credit enforcement comes into the picture, where you want to basically limit the usage of a user, and you do that based on the usage data generated from your system. So that's another typical AI use case that we have these days. And then the last one that is interesting to both AI companies and enterprise actually is called unit economics, where you want to attribute your own usage costs to, well, either customers, or you just want to understand how usage costs translate into usage or pricing on your side. So basically what you can do is figure out like an equation from your unit of usage into resource costs, and then you can measure resource usage and translate your own unit of usage into resource costs, either per customer or just in general. You can visualize that on dashboards and stuff like that. So that's also a use case, as I said, for both AI companies and enterprises, because they want to understand how their costs translate into, well, revenue. So we have a lot of AI customers. We have enterprise companies. Interestingly, for enterprise, like it's often unit economics and about the integrations. Like they have their own systems, obviously, and we've been working on a lot of integrations lately, so that it's easier for them to ingest usage information into OpenMeter. And then the usual stuff like access control, etc. So we are building all these into the cloud version. Obviously, access control doesn't really make sense in the open source version because there is no dashboard in there yet.
OpenMeter is a successful company and founded by Y Combinator. Can you tell us more about how it works?
Y Combinator offers not just funding, but a lot of additional resources and help to make your company successful. So after you get into the program, you go through, I think, a 3 months um, startup booster or accelerator program where you have regular meetings with other startup founders, regular meetings with people from Y Combinator, from YCs, and they help you not just build a product, but build the mindset necessary to run a startup company. If you reach a point where you don't know where to go next, I think YC is a great place to ask help for, because a lot of other people struggled with these issues or struggle on a daily or monthly basis.
How challenging it is to build a startup company entirely remotely when it comes to engineering?
Most of our customers are in the US. So when most of us work in Hungary or work from Hungary, it's actually challenging to, provide support to all those customers, answer questions in a timely manner. So there are other challenges associated with working specifically from the EU, like time zone wise, while most of the customers are in the US. So there are those challenges. From an engineering perspective, I'd say it's a challenge, and because of the size of the company, it was mostly manageable so far. I really enjoy being in the same office with people, working with people. I do enjoy working from home as well, but it's not as effective. Like the one example that I always mention is talking about something over coffee. I think most of the issues or problems that I solved with people happened over or started by a conversation over a cup of coffee. You know, what are you struggling with these days? What are the problems you're working on? Um, and when you're talking to other people, like just casually, they can bring in different perspectives that can save you a lot of time and effort when you're trying. You're dead on something, trying to solve a problem. You're coming it from a very specific angle. You can solve it, and then somebody else just brings in some whole new idea, and saves you a lot of time and frustration. And I really miss those kind of conversations, because when you work remotely, most of the conversations you have are about specific topics in very specific, like, virtual meetings. So I really miss that setting, and we are actually working on, like, we are going into a hiring ground right now, and we are actually thinking about either working a few days from a co-working space or getting our own office. We don't really know yet, but we do want to have some face-to-face time with our colleagues.
Understand.
So it's been a challenge so far, but it's been manageable, mostly because of the company size, because of the fact that we've worked together before. So we kind of have this implied trust to each other. One of the challenges I I had before with remote working, especially with people who I've never worked before, is the lack of trust that you have for each other, even unknowingly. Like if you don't, like, if you haven't had a beer with someone, how do you trust that? If you haven't had like a personal conversation, how can you build trust with someone purely on a professional basis? I mean, I don't think that works. So the fact that we've worked together before, I think that helped a lot and made it more manageable. But yeah, there are challenges, and if or when we start to grow, bring in new people, maybe people who we've never worked before, it's going to be a challenge. So we do need to do some face to face time.
Before this project, I think you mainly worked on non-financial related products. Is it different at all from your previous projects?
Well, it's a great question, and if you ask me whether I would want to work on a finance related software project like a year
Mhm.
ago, I would have said no. I never saw myself working on finance related stuff, mostly because I'm not that interested in it. Like,
Mhm.
people think money makes them happy, but it doesn't. And for that reason, I always try to, kind of distance myself from these kind of projects.
Mhm.
Uh, but I actually I actually enjoy it. Like, the first time I talked to the founders about it, and
Mhm.
the way they explained their vision, it was actually very exciting. And from the engineering side, the challenge isn't really about understanding the financial part of or the financial parts of the project.
Mhm.
This is mostly a data project. It's about moving data from point A to point B and querying the data. So from the engineering side, it's not that financial or not that finance related, but obviously
Mhm.
there are finance related parts of it. But again, I didn't see myself working on a project like this like a year ago. But I do enjoy it, and yes, the
Mhm.
challenges are different. Like most of my projects for the last 5 or 6 years were mostly infrastructure and cloud provider related. So those are different kind of challenges.
And as far as I know, the founders not just know the technology, they are developers too, so they are engineers too. Do you think that a company or like the product like this one could be built place where the founders don't know or just barely know the technology?
It's a good question, but it's also a
Mhm.
hard one. Like, I've worked on a fair amount of products at this point in my career,
Mhm.
and like, I'm not a product manager. I'm not really good at UX. I do think those are important parts of building a good product, because product and UX are the areas that can really interact with the customers,
Mhm.
all types of customers, effectively. At the same time, building an engineering focused product means we are engineers, we hopefully we understand the challenges, but we can also talk to other engineers and understand their struggles and build something that solves their issues. So I'm not sure I can say that building an engineering focused product is easier for engineers. It's probably
Mhm.
easier. Um, but I'm also not like I'm not an expert in product management. So
Mhm.
what I'm trying to say is we certainly lack some abilities and skills that a skillful product manager could bring to the team.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I've always or often struggled to collaborate and work with product managers because they had such a gap, not just in the
Mhm.
technology, but understanding the general ecosystem. So, no, I don't think you can build a product like this without understanding the technology.
Thank you for joining. I learned a lot, and I wish the best for you and for the product and the company. I'm looking for have you back again another episode in the future.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to it.
Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this conversation, please hit subscribe. If you haven't seen our previous episode, make sure to check them out. All details about the Follow the Pattern podcast can be found on the Follow the Pattern website. The link is available in the description below. Join the Follow the Pattern Discord server where you can ask questions about the podcast, or you can submit questions to our next guest. The Discord link is also available in the description below. See you in the next episode.